Hey guys. Okay, so today we are going to talk about why you should want to hear the word no sometimes. I think for a lot of us, especially when we're first starting out as copywriters, we're very afraid to hear the word no. We're very afraid of clients rejecting us. We're very afraid of people, of what that no means, that we're not good enough, we're not valuable enough as copywriters, we don't know enough. And that's really not at all what no means. The simple fact of life in any business is that you're gonna hear no more often than you hear yes. And that goes for pitching clients. And sometimes no does literally mean no, no thanks. We don't really have a need for that right now. Sometimes it's not hearing back from clients, although you should always, or potential clients, although you should always send a follow-up or two. But we think that saying no is going to be the worst thing when it's just part of doing business. And I wish I could tell you that it wasn't. I wish I could tell you that every single pitch email you send out, they're going to come back and go, yes, what a great idea. You're exactly what we needed. We hire you. But that's just not how it works. And that's not how it works with anything, right? Anything worthwhile has a little bit of struggle to it, but it's really up to you how much you make that struggle, that no, mean to you. Part of why it's so important that you should want to hear no's is, in a way, because it's important for you to get used to it. You want to get to the point when someone says, you know what, no thank you, I don't think that this is going to work for us right now, or thanks so much for sending in your pitch, it's just not a great time for us, or thank you, but this rate isn't going to work, or whatever. You want to get to the point where you can just let it roll off your back, where you can go, okay, no big deal. And hopefully you get there sooner than later, because you can be aware that for every client that says no, there's going to be a client that will say yes. There's so many potential clients in the world, so many, that a no shouldn't mean anything except that now you should move on to somebody else. You can stop focusing on this one and then move on to somebody else. A no just lets you know where to refocus your attention, right? It's not a judgment on you. It's not a judgment on your skills. It has very little to do with you or your skills or anything like that generally. It's a good thing to hear. It makes it, the more you hear no, the easier it gets when you hear it. And again, it also lets you know for sure that this client is not for you. Okay, great. You don't have to chase them down. You don't have to send follow-ups, or, if you really want to work for that client, then send them something else, send them another pitch in 6 months or whatever. People change, companies change. But when a client says no, great. You can stop chasing them. You can move on to another client. Super. And that client may say yes. And that client may not just say yes to that project. They may say yes to multiple projects. Fantastic. A no is just a client saying, hey, we're not a fit. But there's going to be a client that will be a fit. And actually a guest on our podcast, Susie Tomachek, said, if you're not hearing no, you're not asking enough. And I think that that's a good point about our rates too. If you are pitching clients and you're telling them your rate for a project, and every single one of them is saying yes. Now, in a way, it's like, hey, super, you've got all this work. But that should also make you think, if none of these clients have a problem with my rate, am I charging too little? Is it, and I'm not saying at any point that you should be gouging your clients, or you shouldn't just haphazardly, raise rates. I'm not of the school of double your rates until they say no. No. It should still have a solid base in reality in terms of how long you're going to take to work on a project, and all of those pieces. Our CCA students know there's the whole system. But if every single one of the clients that you are proposing a rate to says, yeah, absolutely, no problem, it might be a sign that it's worth looking at raising your hourly rate. And we'll tell you, don't double your rate. You don't have to, but maybe you have such great pieces in your portfolio, maybe you've attained a level of skill, it's time to raise your rate by $5 an hour. I don't mean raise it from 60 an hour to 80 an hour, but maybe if you're at 60 and nobody has any problem with it, raise it to 65 and see where that is. No's help you get a feel for where you are in space and where clients see you. And also too, no is not necessarily the end of a conversation, and I think sometimes people, we interpret things as no. They're not even actually saying no, we interpret things as no. So for example, if you pitch a client, you have a conversation with them, you send through your quote, your proposal, and you give them a quote for the amount, and they say, oh, this is actually a little bit outside of our budget. That's not no. I think a lot of newer copywriters especially would hear that and go, okay, well, this one didn't work, on to the next one. This is a little outside of our budget is not no. That's just the next step in the conversation. So then that invites you to come back, first of all, do your own calculations and figure out what you are really willing to work for. What's that level where below it, it's not worth it for you, but above it, okay, you can make that work. Figure out what that number is. But if they say that's not in their budget, then say, okay, what is your budget for this project? And then if that number is above your floor, then you can say, you know what, actually, I can make this happen. I'm really interested in this project, and I am willing to work within your budget. Or if it's below, then you can be the one to say no and say, you know what, I'm sorry, I would have really liked to do this, but it just doesn't make sense for me to take a project of this size at that price. And sometimes they will come back after you say no. So bear that in mind. Not all of them will, but some of them will. So it doesn't, things that we perceive as no are not necessarily no's. And it's the same thing with when you send a pitch email and you don't hear anything. It means no. It means they don't want me. It means they don't think I'm a good copywriter. It doesn't mean any of that stuff. All it means is that, well, it doesn't mean anything. You couldn't possibly know what's going on in their lives. You can't interpret it. You can't make any assumptions. You have no idea what's going on in their lives. They could have gotten buried in their inbox. They could have accidentally deleted it. They could have missed it. They could be on vacation and forgot to turn on out of office. There are like dozens of things that could be going on. Their cat could have walked across the keyboard and deleted the email. Any number of things that you interpreted as a no was not a no. And that's also why we send follow-ups, right? But so, to recap, start getting used to no. It's a very healthy thing to get used to hearing the word no, to actually hear the word no. It helps you figure out what path you want to be on, or what path you should be on. It helps you refocus your attention. And the more you get used to hearing no and then going, okay, on to the next client, because that should be your attitude. And it's probably going to take you a little bit to get there, especially if you're newer. But eventually, you want to get to that point where a potential client says, this isn't going to work. And you go, okay, best of luck to you. On to the next guy, because there are so many clients, there is so much opportunity. So the sooner you get there, the better. And the faster way to get there is to hear more no's. So embrace those no's. But on the other side of that coin, don't assume things are no if you haven't actually heard the word no. Don't assume it's no if they say the budget's too high. Don't assume it's no if they're taking time to get back to you. Don't assume it's no if any number of things. It's not no until you hear the word no. And again, sometimes no is really good feedback. And sometimes you want to hear no to help you. Well, same thing with your rates too. Maybe you need to hear no, maybe you need to keep going until you hear the word no, and then you say, all right, now my rates are a little bit more in line because your rates probably shouldn't be so good that every single client says, yeah, I'll do it at that price. Wait a minute now.